Hi everyone! So one of the most requested videos I've had recently has been, what would my makeup collection look like if I got to start over? Now, it's been phrased in a few different ways. I think this was a tag that has gone around before. I think there's been a few different variations of this sort of video, just sort of talking about favorite products basically, sort of like holy grail things, the first things you would repurchase if you lost all of your makeup. So it was a really interesting question, and as I responded to the people who commented it, I was like, I really have to think about this. This is a very interesting question. What would I purchase immediately? What would be the first things that I would have to have if I lost all of my makeup? And I definitely probably overthought it. I was like, well, what would the scenario be in that, you know, what would have caused me to lose all of my makeup? What would I be in? And then I started thinking, okay, let's imagine I could buy whatever I wanted. And I was definitely thinking pretty extremely elaborate and probably unrealistic. And then I thought more realistically, sort of like what would be the just base amount of product that I would absolutely have to have that I would work towards purchasing. So that's what I'm going to be sharing, just different categories. I did write down a list on my phone of all the categories. I'm sure I'm missing something, but if I'm missing something, it probably means that I don't really need it right away, right? So this is just the stuff that I feel like I would have to have, and I wrote it down sort of in the order that I thought of it too, which was interesting. So I thought that I would share it that way instead of like the order I would apply the makeup to my face. Because the very first thing I thought that I would need to purchase is Dip Brow. So the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow specifically. I've used other sort of brow pomades before, never really liked them. The Anastasia Dip Brow lasts over a year for me. I'm working on one right now that I think I bought roughly a year ago, and I probably have at least a good 6 months left of it, and I have been able to prolong the life of previous dip brows by dropping a little bit of Inglot Duraline. So I'm also thinking in this situation I might still have some of those products. It's hard to say, because if I had to repurchase all of my brushes as well, it would definitely change some of the things I would purchase. But assuming I have all of my brushes and some of my general sort of skincare tool stuff, I would have to get the Dip Brow specifically. Then I would need a brow gel, because the first thing I'm thinking of, like, even if I have very minimal makeup on, one of the things I like to do these days is brows. I feel like it makes a difference, and I feel like even if I'm just doing like concealer and brows and maybe like eyeliner or mascara, it makes a difference. So anyway, brow gel. I figure I would get a clear one like I have currently from CoverGirl, or one like I've used before from Elle. Very affordable, very simple products. Just, you know, a lot of them are interchangeable between mascara or brow gel, but I tend to use the clear thing as a brow gel. I've never been a clear mascara kind of person, but that's where I would go, CoverGirl or Elle. I have a handful of like drugstore favorite reliable brands, but those two specific products I have experience with as well, so that's what I would go for. I need a face primer. 100% need a face primer, because even if I'm just putting on concealer, just a little bit of something on my face, I need a face primer. And I honestly do not know what I would run out for first, because it's been so long since I've bought a face primer. My first initial gut instinct is the hydrating primer from Makeup Forever, because it's a very good all-around face primer that I've used before many times in the past, and I really, really liked it. It may not be that accessible to me, so in which case I would go to the drugstore. And so my go-to brands in the drugstore: CoverGirl, Elle, like previously mentioned, Maybelline is another one, Wet n Wild, somewhat, Physicians Formula, Pixie, so like higher end drugstore, and then sort of lower end. NYX is another one as well. Those are sort of like my go-to drugstore brands. I have seen some foundation primers from CoverGirl, so that's probably where I would go. I think CoverGirl is a holdover from my youth. I was a very big fan of CoverGirl, and I still have a little bit of that brand loyalty, so that's probably where I would go first. For foundation, it's sort of the same thing. I really don't know. My first thought is the MAC Water Weight Foundation. That is probably my favorite foundation that still exists. Being someone who hasn't purchased makeup for a while, a lot of the things that I did like have been discontinued, and if I needed to purchase something new, I don't know if I would want to take a gamble on something that is completely untested. I feel like face primer is a little bit different. Like a hydrated face primer generally is going to be pretty good, but foundation can be hit or miss. So if I had the ability, I would just get the one that I've used before, the tried and true that I've used multiple bottles of, the MAC Water Weight. Otherwise, I would go with the brand, and that, again, it would probably be CoverGirl, maybe Maybelline. I haven't had very good luck shade matching with Elle. So that's probably where I would go to first. If I was sticking with drugstore, I'd be like right in the CoverGirl Maybelline aisle looking for just a really base sort of foundation, just something very, very basic that would match me as closely as possible. I would pick up a blush palette. I'm not exactly sure what. Would probably look at something more affordable, like at drugstores. There's so many more options now, but I'm so unfamiliar with those options that I can't speak on exactly what it is, but that's what I'd be looking for, is a blush palette with multiple shades and preferably multiple finishes, because then I have something that would work if I wanted something matte, if I wanted something a little shimmery. I could also use those blushes as eyeshadow as well, so it would be dual purpose. But a blush palette as opposed to just a single foundation would be my ideal thing, because then I can make it work for me for so many different things. So a blush palette for sure, just like a contour palette. I'm thinking contour palette, not that I need multiple shades of contour, but that I would potentially also have some sort of highlight or powder shades in there as well. And with multiple shades in a contour palette, it would help me for filming purposes, because I need a darker contour shade for filming than I need in my day-to-day life. So a contour palette would hit all of those things for me. And then I probably would honestly look for a highlight palette, or at least some sort of highlight duo. I'd probably go for the Pixie one that I've used before and almost completely finished up. It is the Glowy Gossamer Duo in Subtle Sunrise. That is one of my absolute favorite things, and there's 2 different shades in there, and that's probably what I would go for if I couldn't find a highlight palette that I thought would work for me, because I would want something that's going to be on the lighter end of the spectrum that would work for my face. Something that I could also use as an eyeshadow highlighter as well. So something that would be light enough to highlight the inner corner of my brow bone as well. Just looking at things that'd be like multi-purpose, but that would work for me in a few different ways. Sometimes highlight palettes might have something like more of a pink shimmer that I could also use as a blush and use as eyeshadow. So again, to use things in many different ways. I would definitely pick up a bronzer, because I have been really loving the bronzer life, and I generally use bronzer every single day. I would probably stick with something that I know, which is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer, but that also depends on what was around, or if there was some sort of mixture, like blush contoury sort of palette that wasn't very orangey, that had a shade that I could use for a bronzer within there, something, you know, warmer, but not sparkly. That's what I would just stick with that. I would get a very basic, cheap mascara. I just picked one up when I was away because I forgot one. Like this one was $4 at Winners. It's a CoverGirl Full Spectrum Lash Ambition Mascara. I'd probably just pick something up like that. A very black mascara is definitely what I would get, because when I do mascara, I want it to be very, very black. I would pick up a black eyeliner. That's what I use the most. I would love, you know, the colorful lash line and everything else, but that would just have to wait. It would just be one of those mechanical ones. My first thought was the Pixie Waterline one, the black one. I like that one quite a bit. There's one I've been using recently from Sigma that I like as well, just those ones that twist up as opposed to ones you actually have to sharpen. Those are the ones I tend to like the most, just that sort of softer formula. And I feel like with a really black eyeliner, I could sort of skip the liquid eyeliner for the time being. I wouldn't really need that anyway. I don't do cat eyes, but if I still had my lashes and lash glue, then that's something that I would definitely use in addition. But lashes and lash glue would definitely wait. They wouldn't be like an immediate must-have purchase, but definitely a good solid black eyeliner. I'd purchase a lip balm, and I probably would splurge and get a good one. I've had a couple of ones from Fresh on my wish list, so I probably would just do it at that point if I had nothing and needed something. Since I don't really wear a lot of lip products these days, occasional lip gloss, don't really do lipstick that much. which is funny right now because I went with the very dramatic lipstick, but generally I just don't wear a lot of lipstick. I don't wear a lot of lip products, so I'd probably just get the fancy lip balm and use it every single day, so it would be worth it for me in that case. And then for eyeshadow, because that's what's left. It's like, well, this was the hardest thing for me to think of, is what would I do for eyeshadow, because I'd love to just run out and purchase like the almost $200 Natasha Denona like Biba palette that I, you know, talked endlessly about but don't have and want, and that probably isn't very realistic, let's be real. I would probably still get a Natasha Denona thing, but it would be the mini. I would get the mini gold palette. It's one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes that I own. A handful of shades in there, but it hits all those right notes for me. I get a lot of use out of it. And then I would do some singles from MAC, actually. I would get probably half a dozen to start with, you know. I think that would be a good number of shadows, and I would get my sort of staple matte neutral shades, maybe a couple of metallics, but mostly the matte neutral shades that I really enjoy using. I'm not even sure if they still exist, but I really love MAC eyeshadow. I love working with them. They are some of my absolute favorites. There's, you know, some Urban Decay, Natasha Denona, MAC. That's where I live, and I figure that MAC would probably be the best thing, just to have a handful of those single shadows that I can select exactly what I want. So that's where I'd be going for first, and then sort of working to build up other things as needed, like glitters, getting the Urban Decay Heavy Metal glitter liners for sure, and just sort of getting a small bit of things as I could get them. But I feel like that core group of things would be the best for me. If I had to pick like one makeup store, definitely be MAC would be the one place that I would go to purchase everything. But again, that's the fantasy. That's the fantasy life, like starting over again. It would just be a relative mixture of things, of high and low end. There's a couple things that I would definitely have to find the way to splurge on, just because I know that it's worth the money and that I would get the most usage and enjoyment from it. So there's that balance as well. But yeah, I don't know if that's surprising to anyone, but I wouldn't go crazy, you know. Like the most I would do for eyeshadow would, besides the mini Natasha Denona, would maybe invest in the 15 pan from MAC, which would be very expensive. But if I had exactly what I wanted, and I probably wouldn't get it all at one time, like I probably would still get the 15 pan palette when I purchased my handful of singles first, but I wouldn't buy everything all at one go. Like those first initial things are the things that I'd run out for, going to the mall, going to MAC, Sephora, and the drugstore, and just getting those solid handful of things that I at least have a full face of makeup, and then figure out what I needed as I go. One thing I did just realize I forgot to mention that I would definitely need, I guess it wouldn't be an absolute necessity, but for me, I really love color correctors, so I probably would also splurge on the Urban Decay Naked Skin color correctors in green and pink. So I had something to color correct redness and under eye circles, because in some sort of hypothetical situation where I lost all my makeup collection, I'm probably pretty stressed, so I probably have some red spots. And I probably haven't been sleeping very well, so probably have some dark circles, so that would probably be worth it for me to have those color correcting options, and skipping entirely on concealer as long as I had the workable foundation. So that is everything that I think I would purchase right away. Let me know if you think I missed any important makeup category. I could very clearly be overlooking something, which would be very interesting. It's funny how perspectives change. What would you purchase first? What would be your very first purchase? Like my very first thing, I really do think would be the dip brow. I really feel like, okay, even if everything else is crap, at least I can have my eyebrows painted on. It's so funny. That's the way that I was thinking. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what other people would purchase first. Like what would be your very first purchase if you had zero makeup left? And thank you to everyone who suggested this over the last few months, and who have been asking this question and been very curious about sort of my favorite products, because I love talking about them. I love talking about the things that I love using and just my general experience. So yeah, it's kind of fun to think about that, what I would do. And I'm looking forward to getting to a point where I can kind of go back and like explore some of those things I'm not familiar with anymore. Like I do want to even just wander around the drugstore section just to kind of see what's available. And it's like, you know, that's the best thing about drugstores too, is like the swatches and the testers, and just trying to kind of get into that world a little bit. I've been very absent, and I'm just very curious more than anything as to what's out there. So anyway, thank you so much for watching and for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I hope we get a chance to chat soon. Bye for now.